has no cancer. God, it doesn't matter where you're at, what shape you're in. God is still a big enough God. You can have one foot in the grave and the other about to slip, but all it takes is God to touch you wherever you're at one time. God can pull you out. God can deliver you from the... David said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So I'm so close to death, I'm standing in death's shadow. But he said, I'm walking through it. I'm not going to die here. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because thou art with me. Everything I walk through, you're there. You're with me to help me through. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Let me tell you something. You can live and not die. God, doesn't matter where you're at, God will pull you out. Jonah, you know what? That fish began to swim. The minute Jonah cried out to God and repented, that fish began to swim towards the shores of Nineveh. You know, he didn't come out overnight. He was in the belly of the fish 3 days and nights. It took him probably half of that to get where he was going. But God began to walk Jonah out of where he was at. The Bible said that when he got there, the fish puked Jonah up. How do you say, well, you're some educated, well, you know what that means. It means he puked. He barked. He threw him up. He threw him up on the shore. Jonah didn't smell good. He didn't look good. But he hit the ground running as fast as he could run. The Bible said that Nineveh was a 4 days journey, and Jonah made it in one. I mean, he wasn't going to repeat the same mistake twice. Huh? God delivered Jonah out of the belly of hell. And it doesn't matter where you're at tonight. I don't gotta have to know it. Nobody else does. God knows what position you're in. He knows what hell you're in. And God will deliver you out of the hell that you're in. If you'll just do like Jonah, turn your face over, cry out to God. And God, He is still the same yesterday, today, and forever. If He was a healer, He's still a healer. He's still the dead raiser. He still delivers from the hand of the fowler. There ain't nothing the devil can't put you in that God can't get you out of. Well, I don't know about all that dead raiser stuff. I do. We used to have a woman come to our church. God raised her from the dead. My mother's sister went in for a simple surgery. She went in there. They said she'd only be under what, just a couple of hours? Ended up being under there 6. They were supposed to just put a bag on her. But something went wrong. She already had problems in her body to begin with. And something went wrong. She was in there for hours. They took her out, put her on life support and all them machines. Everything said, dead. Her husband got to see her just a minute and said she was already turning blue. Turning colors. She laid in that hospital dead for 2 hours. They took him off to the side, in the side room, and said, you better go make preparations. You better, in other words, you better start getting a funeral ready. You better start doing all that. She is dead. Doctors said it. I'm not talking about 5 minutes and then I'm talking about 2 hours. Dead. They called the house. Mr. Penn got the call. They said, well, the doctors are saying she's dead. Y'all better pray. Mr. Penn come and told me. And I told God, I said, God, they're saying she's dead. What good is prayer going to do now? What are we supposed to do if she's already dead? I began to walk and pray. And I took God, I said, God, we preach and say that this word is the greatest truth and this is truth. I said, God, you got to make a difference and show that this is truth. her spirit in a black, dark place. That death. And I saw her there. But you know what? God, He was there with her. See, that's what will pull you out. God won't leave you. Man will leave you. Man will go as far as the grave. But God, He'll go beyond where man can go. I saw her there in that blackness. And she was standing there, but God, His presence was there with her. I began to scream and pray. I've never prayed like that in my life. And you can't do it except the Lord give you that kind of prayer. And I began to grab onto every scripture. Jesus, you said, you're the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in you, though he were dead, yet shall he live. You don't come to destroy men's life, but to save them. Everything I could grab onto, that spirit of death come in the room where I was at, and the devil talking in my ear. You're crazy. Why are you praying? She's dead. Ain't nothing going to change. I felt death right behind me for that whole time she lay there dead. Praying everything I could pray. Screaming at the top of my voice. God, do something. Save her. And all of a sudden, there wasn't no thunder out of heaven, no lightning bolts. God just spoke in my ear. And He said, get up, stop praying, it's done. Yes. I got up, walked into the living room, I fell on the couch, drained just about everything I had. It wasn't 20 minutes. They called the house and said, we don't know what happened. Said all the vitals, all the machines, everything began to jump. God raised her from the dead. And He is the same. She's alive right now. She's still going. Why? Because Jesus is the resurrection and the life. He don't leave you when death comes your way. Jesus don't forsake you, but He's with you. Walking around tonight alive. Now you talk about crying out of the belly of hell. She was in the belly of death, but God brought her out. Not because of me, not because Jesus. She had a vision the next day, laying in that hospital bed. God had given her life back. But when you come back from death, you just don't jump up and, she had to regain her strength. And she said that she lay in that hospital bed. And she looked at the foot of her bed. And there stood the form of a man, beaten, broken, bloodied. Didn't ever say a word. She knew what it meant. She raised in church her whole life. She knew what that meant. Jesus took her infirmity to the whipping post. He said in Isaiah 53:5, with His stripes you are healed. He said in Peter, you were healed. It was already done. Jesus cried at Calvary and He said, it is finished. In other words, I've completed it all. Your salvation has been completed in me. Your healing has been completed. It's finished in me. God didn't have to speak a word. She knew what it meant. God gave her life. Jonah should have been dead, but God gave him his life. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You might feel like Paul. The Bible said that he was given a thorn in the flesh. He sought God. If anybody fasted, Paul fasted. He fasted, he prayed, he sought God thrice or 3 times for the thorn to be removed, but God wouldn't take it. Paul probably cried out with Alvin and said, God, I can't take this no more. Why won't you take this from me? And God answered Paul and He said, Paul, my grace is sufficient for thee. Let me tell you, God's grace is enough to find you wherever you're at. God's grace is strong enough to pull you out when you can't. Paul couldn't pull himself out. If Paul could have delivered himself, he wouldn't have cried out to God 3 times to take it away. How many has ever had to go through stuff you felt like you couldn't live through? God, if I got to keep living like this, I'd rather die. I can't live.